Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations, and you are here for Talk Tuesday. Now, Talk Tuesday is where I bring you some kind of a tip, whether it is about painting, it's about small business, or maybe it's a success tip. Today's tip is about how to price your work, and this is probably one of the most frequently asked questions that I get. And it's perhaps one of the hardest things, especially for creatives, to try and figure out, what do I price? How do I do this? And usually we make the mistake of taking the advice of those people around us that may or may not have ever had a creative business. And so we end up pricing way too high. We have an inflated idea of what the market would bear, or we significantly undercharge. And this is perhaps the most common piece, is undercharging for our work, because we tend to have an issue with putting value on our creativity. So I want to give you an idea, very basic way of being able to price out your work in a way that is totally explainable to the rest of the free world, right? Because you always have somebody who thinks, well, I could have done that. So you start out by taking a look at what is it that you are charging for. So are you painting a piece of furniture? Are you making a bracelet, a piece of jewelry? So are you selling jewelry that you've made? Are you selling your pottery or paintings? What is it that you are selling as your business model? And take a look at, for those items, what are your associated costs? So that means if I'm looking at a dresser, perhaps, what did I pay for the dresser? What was my cost in purchasing that item? What was the cost of the cleaner that I used? What was the cost of the paint that I used? Did I add a transfer on? Did I add molds on? Did I have to do any repairs to that piece? What was the sealer cost? So you need to break down what were your costs. This means, at the very least, this is what you have to charge just to break even. Now, we all want to make some money on it. So we then have to look very realistically at how much per hour do we not necessarily want to get paid, because let's face it, we'd all want to get paid as much as possible. So, I want to get paid, $2,000 an hour, but that's not realistic and that's not going to happen. So what do I need to get paid per hour to be able to justify even engaging in this business? So what do I need to get paid? So you then take a look at, how long did it take you to make that? And I tend to go in 15-minute increments. Doing it by, this was 3 minutes, doesn't cut it. If lawyers can charge this way, so can I. So I charge in 15-minute increments, because very often, if I go to just buff a piece, maybe I'm doing that for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, and that tends to work. Otherwise, we'll say we didn't put in a full hour, and then we will undervalue what we did. So how much time did it take? And you then multiply that against how much you're expecting to make per hour, and you add that to the cost of the piece, right? So what did the materials all cost me? And then that at least is realistically what you want to charge for the piece. Sometimes it's as simple as that, sometimes not, because it's then that you go and you take a look at, okay, and what can my market bear? So you may find that you need to maybe adjust a little bit. Maybe you are overcharging per hour based on your market, because, I want to make $50 an hour, but you live in a really, really small town, small community, and you don't do online. So you can only charge what that small market could charge, even though you may have a friend online who is saying charge more because they live in a big city and they can charge big city pricing. You may be able to charge more even though you're in a small town, because your item is sold online and it's totally shippable, right? So that gives you a much bigger audience, in which case then you can compete with those big city prices potentially, and you can charge more per hour. So that's one of the advantages of being able to take it to a much broader audience, because you can adjust your pricing accordingly. Now, That in its basic stages is what you would charge and how to be able to price it. But you also need to take into consideration a couple of other things. Are you listing your product on a platform like Etsy? In which case, how much does it cost me to list my product? What percentage are they taking off of the sales? You know, is it going through PayPal? They deduct. Is that okay? Have I built that into my pricing model? Because otherwise you may have to bump it up a little bit just to cover those costs, build those in. Otherwise they take away from your price per hour that you wanted to get paid. So take a look at what additional little costs, depending upon what kind of platform you're selling. For instance, I have an online website that costs me money to be able to pay for that on a monthly basis through the platform that I use. I have rent, and now it costs more to buy a piece of my furniture that because I have a store now than it did when I was selling small from my home. Same piece of furniture, but my costs are different. I might still make the same per hour, but my costs have gone up in the making of that piece, and everything that I sell has to have a percentage added to it that helps pay for the overhead. Does that make sense? So you can create a spreadsheet in Excel and just plug in numbers if you're able to do that. But at the very least, you can do it with paper and pen. So don't let the lack of technology or not knowing how to create a spreadsheet stop you from being able to keep track of those costs. You're going to get an idea over time of just being able to know. This is how long it takes me to do this kind of piece. I don't have to track my time anymore. So you're going to be able to just roughly judge those kinds of things. And all that varies is, oh, this piece cost me this much. Meaning if I'm making jewelry, I'm going to have to charge more because I'm using sterling silver clasps and beads in the making of it. And real semi-precious stones than when I was doing it with wood and copper. Make sense? Don't get hung up on this, but it does give you a way to be able to play with it, to be able to price out your product better, and feel fully justified in charging what you're charging. It is much easier to look someone in the eye who is questioning your pricing and say, look, I keep strict watch on what my inherent costs are, what the number of hours are that it took me to complete a piece, and I feel really comfortable with my price. I charge differently for a piece that took me 20 hours to complete versus one that took me 4. That makes sense in my head. But there are some times that might have only taken me 4 hours to complete a piece, and I know that I've built a marketplace that would actually pay me more for that piece, and I'm able to bump it up and make more per hour on that piece than I do on another piece. So sometimes you've got those checks and balances, but you can only go into that once you have an understanding of your marketplace. I hope this helps, but hit me up in the comments with any of your additional questions or comments, anything that you'd like to share that you found works for you that may help somebody else. Let's build a community of people helping each other. Until next week, Cindy Daychuk. I look forward to seeing you then. Take care.